Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam, and today I wanted to talk about the books that I finished reading in the month of September. So I'm just gonna kind of read off of some of my notes in Notion to make sure we stay on task here. Start off with one that I'm so proud to say that I finished, which was Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I really was pleasantly surprised with this overall. The main topics here, which I thought they were going to be more politics heavy, but in actuality it was more philosophy heavy. It was discussing and exploring some ideas around human nature and morality and crime, and using dialogue between characters to discuss these different concepts. And I think the author did a really great job of really fleshing out these ideas, showing the different opinions, and then putting it into action in the actual plot of the book, where characters had to maybe act a little bit differently than they thought they might when talking about it previously. The writing was also very descriptive and really immersed you in that environment of 1860s St. Petersburg, which really set the scene and the tone for the whole novel. The only issue I had was the pacing, and that's because I think it was originally published as serials, so there's really long stretches of just very little happening and then sudden cliffhangers, and it was really awkward and slow. If you can kind of push through that, I think you could also really enjoy this book if you haven't read it yet. I would say that the writing style was very introspective. So you do have some dialogue, you do have a lot of descriptions, but there's also a lot of inner monologues happening, so you really get to know, particularly with the main character, start to see their inner world, which was really interesting as well. That's all I have to say for Crime and Punishment. So next book was One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, and this is an adult sci-fi romance. The themes really revolved around the LGBTQ movement, particularly in New York, and some themes around feminism and gender, but it wasn't overly saturated with that. It was just discussed kind of casually throughout the novel. There's really good consent in this relationship. There's also a lot of themes around found family and kind of finding home, which was really heartwarming and lovely. There was also a fantastic cast of diverse, very lovable characters. Again, very heartwarming. There's definitely a level of fairy tale-ness, like sugarcoating on how things would maybe play out in the real world situation. Like, I definitely wouldn't call this realistic, but the actual relationship, the romance between the two main characters, I guess, felt very genuine, but the plot was very unrealistic, even without the sci-fi element of it all. Even just the situation where the main character was moving in with these new roommates and just immediately became family, which is so fun to read about, but it's not particularly realistic. But you kind of suspend disbelief a little bit and just go along for the ride. It definitely gives the warm and fuzzies. Definitely recommend, particularly for the hopeless romantics who just want to see things through rose-colored glasses sometimes, you know? The writing style was very conversational. There was some good dialogue. I definitely had some giggles with the dialogue, particularly with the roommates. They were great. Yeah, and just some fantastic descriptions of New York City. This all takes place mostly on the subway and in Flatbush in Brooklyn. So some really great imagery of New York and moving to New York for the first time, so definitely struck a chord a little bit with me. Yeah, overall, really enjoyed this. There was only a couple little things at the very end that just didn't quite make it a 5-star book for me, but still fantastic, still super fun read, so I rated it 4.5 stars. All right, the next book that I finished was Show Your Work by Kleon, and this is a nonfiction self-help book. It's super short. It was about 150 pages or so. It also has a lot of diagrams and doodles and quote blurbs and things like that. So it's realistically like half of that. So super fast read, really fast paced, very direct and to the point, super easy read. This one kind of came along, I think, at the right place, right time for me. I really appreciated the messaging and tips that the author gave about being creative and sharing your ideas online, which is essentially exactly what this is. So really good timing for me on that one. My only little qualm with this was that there was no research, which is something that I really appreciate in any nonfiction book, is just presenting an idea and then showing some type of study or something that kind of backs it up. But it wasn't necessary for this topic. This was very much more of a motivational style book. I still rated this one also 4.5 stars. And then to finish off, I also read Austin Kleon's book that was published before that one, which was called Steal Like an Artist. And I'd actually heard of this one many years back, but just didn't have any interest in it at the time. So I wanted to check it out since I did really like Show Your Work so much. But there was a lot of overlap with the two books, so it was a lot of the same themes, a lot of the same messaging, just said in different ways. So I think if it's said in one book in one way and it didn't click, maybe it being said in another book in another way might click. So it's nothing against the book. They were published at different times, but reading them within about a week of each other definitely made me appreciate the second one that I read a little bit less. I would still recommend it to any person working on any sort of creative project who needs some type of boost or motivation, or maybe just another tip or trick to kind of push them along. I also like how the author applies his ideas not just to one specific type of art or even just art in general. He also applies these ideas of creativity to business, which I think is really cool and something that I wouldn't have really thought of myself. I also rated this one 4 stars and still appreciated some of the messages out of it, even though it was a little redundant. Overall, I did like Steal Your Work a little bit more, but I think that's really just because I read it first. But that was all that I read, or finished, I should say, in September. Let me know if you've read any of these and had any thoughts on them, or let me know what your favorite book was in September. All right, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.